So the first question is for the rabbi. Rabbi, how can I, as a Jewish student, find the Jewish community at McMaster which does not support Israel and their actions?
Ooh, I love that question. How can I, as a Jewish student, find a Jewish community at McMaster that does not support Israel or whatever like that? I don't know, but in all seriousness, you and I together could start that. I'm not at McMaster, but it has to start with someone. I know there's a lot of intimidation, there's fear of retaliation, there's people being ostracized and all that. And honestly, if one person stands up and stands out and does the kind of thing, perhaps like I'm doing here tonight, like, hey, I'm Jewish. Nobody can change that or take that away. That's me. That's what I am. And I'm very clear about what I know and what I believe. And nobody's going to intimidate me from saying it out loud in public. If one person does that, I guarantee that will attract other people. So when you say, how can you find community, I guess an answer I would give you seriously is be kind of like the seed crystal that attracts all the other molecules and makes the crystal grow. All the chemists know what I'm saying, right? Just proving that I did take chemistry in high school.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You know what? In all seriousness, whoever submitted that question, seriously, if you're comfortable doing that, please come up to me after this is over and introduce yourself to me. I'd like to know you. I don't know who.
Or leave your contact also, your contact, your social media contact as well. So.
Thank you. So, Sheikh, someone asks, reverse to Islam. Doesn't Islam encourage a Jewish presence in a real Islamic society? And the person asking the question is referencing a hadith by Umar ibn Khattab about bringing Jewish families back to Jerusalem.
Wait a second, I got it.
There we go. That's a better way. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, that Quran speaks a lot about Moses, peace be upon him, speaks about Bani Israel. As a matter of the fact, you open the first chapter, the second chapter, the longest chapter in the Quran, you will clearly see that this chapter is all about Bani Israel. Ya Bani Israel, Ya Bani Israel, Ya Bani Israel. And throughout the history, the Islamic Khilafah has been a welcoming, safe refuge for Jews when they were persecuted in Europe. And that's a fact. And that's why we have Jews living in Morocco, Jews living in Iraq and Syria, and there are some Jews who are living in Palestine. And before this Zionist movement started, everybody was living in peace and harmony. They were welcome. They were part of the society. They were well integrated. We look at them as the people of the book. And by the way, the meaning of the people of the book refers to the learned people. So Quran honors the people of the book being the learned people, unlike the Arabs in Jahiliyyah who were ignorant, they were illiterate. So that speaks for how much Islam respects the people of the book and respects other faith background. Even if people are agnostics, la ikraha fi din. So they have their own beliefs, and we have our own beliefs, but they have the right to be living in peace and harmony, and they have their own amnesty and prosperity and the ability to be able to live as any individual in the society they are living in.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Okay, this question is for the rabbi. During your time in Israel, what was the everyday Israeli inhabitant stance of the treatment of the Palestinians?
So during the time that I lived in Israel, what was the everyday treatment of Palestinians? Is that
what was the average Israeli's opinions on what's going on?
Yeah, it's well, I'm really ashamed to tell you what I experienced, and that changed my ideas. I was a young person, probably younger than most of you in the room right now, and I thought the place that I belong in the world is the land of Israel, right? I was born in the U.S. That was a fortunate accident of history that my grandfather escaped from terrible poverty and anti-Semitism and violence in Russia and came to America. Great-grandparents also escaped, came to America. I got born in America. Is America my country? No. You know, like belongs to the indigenous people. I don't really belong there, you know. So like, where do I belong? And from my reading and my thinking about it, I thought, okay, I belong like in Israel. I should go there. And I did. And oh my God, I remember one of the very first days I was there. I landed. I actually went by ship because I didn't want to just drop out of the sky. I wanted to like experience going across the earth. So I went into the port of Haifa, and then I went to Jerusalem, and I remember I was in Jerusalem, and there was a little boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old, and he had cut his hand, maybe on a broken bottle or something, and his hand was bleeding, and he was crying. And I just saw him, and there was 2 policemen nearby. And I went to the policeman and I said, hey, here's this little boy, he's hurt, can you help him? And they said to me, yeah, what are you talking about? He's an Arab. And that was like my first experience. I was there like one day. And I had, you know, you said average, so there's many Israelis who are kind, humanistic, universalistic people who want to live together with Palestinians. They understand the idea of sharing and getting along with each other. There's even organizations in Israel that are, there's one, I just signed a petition for it like yesterday, called One Democratic State Initiative. Look it up. One Democratic State Initiative. It's Jews and Palestinians that want to live together. That is there. It exists. I could say there are thousands of people who have that attitude. But actually, there's millions of people that have quite the opposite. So if you're asking me for average, it's shameful. It's shameful. You know, and then I try to think a little bit psychologically what's going on. I think it comes from centuries of Jews being completely marginalized, disempowered, mass murdered, expelled, homes destroyed, property destroyed, right? You get this. This went on for centuries. It didn't go on everywhere all the time, but I would say nowhere was safe and secure. There was no place that Jews could feel they were at home. And after centuries of that, finally like grabbing some place and being the dominant power there, and also having an ideology that's constantly reinforced about our own power. We have to be dominant. We have to take care of ourselves, right? That's constantly being taught from the time you're a child. You know, then that does become the dominant, paradigm for life. And there's terrible outcomes. So that's very sadly, you know, I'm very sorry to say that's pretty much my experience. I'll just add something else. I'm just remembering my own life experience. I was 21 years old, still living there. I wanted to do something useful in society. I became a school teacher, and I was a teacher in 2 Jewish villages near Tiberias, or Tabaria. One of them was called Migdal, in Hebrew, Migdal. The other one was called Menachemia. I was a teacher, I went to the schools every day. Next to one village, there was a field of rubble, just like stones, you know? And next to the other village, there's a field of stones. I asked the people in Migdal, like, what are these stones? Why are these stones here? And they said, oh, that's old. That was the Palestinian village, Majdal. We blew it up. We dynamited it so they can't come back. The other village was the same thing. I said the name was Menachemiya. They said, oh, this was the village of whatever, Lahamiya. We blew it up. We dynamited it so they can't come back. And we built our houses here. And they were happy and proud that they did that. And I just want to add something else. So I was like 21 or 22 years old at that time. I saw that with my own eyes. I heard that. I thought, wait a minute, this is like not okay. But this is one of the things I want to leave you with. It took me probably another 30 years or more before I could process that enough to get over my own cognitive dissonance. Of like, oh, I'm a Jewish person. The Jews are good people. I should support the Jews, right? Israel's a good thing. So I have that on one side of my brain. The other side of my brain is what I just told you. My very first day there, I see a child bleeding and the police won't help him. I just told you this other thing. I could tell you things almost every day. My point right here is something to do with how long it takes us humans sometimes to change the stories that we've been told or we tell ourselves, and it shapes who we are. That was my identity, right? I identified with that. That's part of my definition of who I am. And if I see facts before my eyes that are undeniable, there's something, at least in my psychology, and I think many other people's, that makes us not want to integrate that and reevaluate the overall kind of framework of how we see ourselves. And I'm saying that actually in a hopeful way. After 30 years, or maybe 40 years, I did change my ideas, or I wouldn't be here tonight. But it did take me that long. So I'm kind of giving some hope. Don't give up on people, even if it takes them 40 years. It's worth being in an argument with people, if the person's listening at all, if they're not mocking you and dismissing you and trying to put you down, if there's some sincerity, but you're 180 degrees opposed to each other, but they're listening, it's worth saying your side of it. You don't know where that's going to go in their brain, and then maybe not like me, maybe only 10 years later they may change their mind. Just don't give up on anybody. And just expect it takes a long time to kind of reorient from something that you hold so deeply in your heart that it like your brain cannot process the facts that are right before your eyes. So anyway, that's a long, extended answer to the little question you asked me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that deep, personal, candid experience that you had. And that first-hand experience, I think, is what a lot of us are here for, to get that unfiltered reality of what's going on. We're going to pass it off to the Sheikh now.
Sure, no problem. Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so Sheikh, someone asked a question regarding also, it's also relevant with what Rabbi just mentioned about the history of anti-Semitism in Europe, or in the creation of anti-Semitism in Europe. That right now we see a lot of intersection between pro-Palestinian and anti-Semitism, almost being, maybe the media wants people to use it interchangeably. So why is that there, and what can we do about that?
Yeah, clearly they wanted to use the pro-Palestinian as being anti-Semitism to defeat any attempt of people to stand up for truth. Now, being pro-Palestinian could be changed to pro-justice and peace. And I think we should be changing the narrative, because that's what it is all about. It's about standing for your own moral principles, for your own moral values, and we should be persistent and abort any chance or any attempt to shut us down or silence us from speaking the truth. Because being pro-Palestinian does not necessarily mean anti-Semitism. As I said from the beginning, being a Muslim, I read the Quran and I have a lot of respect for Jews as believers. As a matter of the fact, Ya Bani Israel, Ya Bani Israel, keep repeating that over and over again. So this, the attempt from demonizing people who are trying to stand up for Palestinian rights is absolutely unacceptable. I know that there's a young lady trying to raise her hand, maybe correcting the question or the way you want to answer the question to be answered.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, you say that it's like, these people are fighting for justice and peace. I'm not saying that they're not. I just want to preface it by saying I'm not saying that they're not.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what you have to say about like what happened at the Sydney Opera House where they were chanting gas the Jews and kill the Jews and stuff like that. And that was the whole protest. I have another question about how one of the main chants.
Can I stop you there for a second? No. Let me just take it one step at a time.
Okay.
Who said that?
The entire rally, like the protest.
When was it?
October 9th, October 11th.
Okay. I have attended most, not all of them.
This was in Australia.
Oh, Australia. Well, okay, let's make it very clear. If you attend any protest in Canada here at least, they're organized by open-minded young people like yourself. And they make it very clear from the beginning that we are not promoting any hatred or promoting anti-Semitism, and we are here to stand for justice. Yeah.
Okay, so my next question, I guess, would like the continuation
Yeah.
of my first question, is that one of the main chants is "Long live the Intifada, Intifada, Intifada."
Yeah.
That openly is a call for genocide against Jews. There have been two intifadas.
Okay, I understand. Okay, sure.
No, you go first, but I want to.
In Israel. And I can send you sources for this, but that is what the Intifada
Okay,
is. So I'm wondering-
linguistically speaking, intifada is uprising.
And linguistically speaking as well, gay means happy, but when you say someone's gay, in the modern context of it, it means that they are homosexual.
Do you want me to answer or you want to answer? Okay, thank you so much. Now, intifada linguistically means uprising, and it is uprising against the injustice that has been exercised against Palestinians for the past 56 years. Now, I gave you the chance to ask your question. Give me the chance to answer your question and put it in the right context. I'm not against you expressing your thoughts, but at the same time, I'm entitled to explain for you and change the perception. I truly respect your courage to ask this question and want the clarification. So when you look into the Palestinian side who has been oppressed, Gaza has been living in siege for over 16 years or 17 years now. There has been no flow of medications, food, necessities. They're living drop by drop as a patient who's living on life support, living on a drop by drop to survive. Now, why do you want Palestinians to continue to live under that's what it is, because when they say intifada, it is meaning standing for your own rights. It's standing for justice. The whole world have not done anything to Palestinians throughout the suffering of the 56 years or the past 17 years when Gaza was living under siege. And I'll pass the mic to Rabbi to add furthermore on this issue.
It's not just 56 years. In 1948, 750,000 or more Palestinians were expelled from their homes. Their homes were totally destroyed. The villages were wiped off the face of the earth. And it goes back before that. Do you know these things?
Yeah, I do.
Good. That's excellent that you know this. So Palestinians are dispossessed, right? I don't know, do you know the Palestinians who survived and remained on their own land in the state of Israel, lived under military government until 1966?
Yes.
They lived under military government, and then they've lived with, I would say, severe oppression in virtually every area of life for more than 3 generations. So intifada is people simply rising up to try to free themselves from these oppressive conditions. It has nothing at all to do with murdering
Okay.
Jews. The only reason any Jew would get murdered is because they're trying to deny Palestinians their basic fundamental rights as human beings.
What about the Jewish man that got murdered? Literally.
Yeah, so I think maybe we should actually stop talking about this.
Yeah, we're very.
There was a Jewish man who died. No one, excuse me, you know, you're not going to talk over me, right? I'm not as polite as my brother, the Sheikh. No one involved with that Jewish man falling down, banging his head and dying has ever said he was murdered. The police don't say that. You're smirking at me? You're smirking at me?
Take it
Do
easy.
you know what you're talking about?
Yes, he was murdered.
The police don't say he was murdered. The doctors who examined him don't say he was murdered.
Take it easy, David. It's okay. Let's just pass on to other questions. We have about 80 questions.
In the
Take it
forum,
simple.
we're going to limit it to that. And out of respect for our great speakers, we're going to appreciate their time and have the Sheikh add a few closing words for some actionable
Sure.
positive
Yes,
steps.
definitely. Yes. That's good.
Some closing remarks for the clubs that prompted them.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for voicing your questions, and let's all make sure we remain respectful and give thanks to the people that put
That's
this
a lesson
together.
in not
so we can
taking
all get
questions from the
education.
audience.
No. I think we need to give them the chance to speak.
Rabbi
It's
said,
okay.
You can get his contact information. A lot of questions were to the rabbi, so I'm sure you can get his contact information and ask him directly after the session.
Young lady, I wish that you will take the words of wisdom from Rabbi David and reflect and contemplate as you're growing and learning. Try to put yourself on the other side shoes and reflect on their life. No one is saying that either side should not be having the right to live. We're saying both sides need to live with respect and integrity, and we will not be able to do that until we step out of our own egocentrism and put ourselves in the shoes of other side and reflect on their life and try to come up with more rational, more acceptable understanding. I don't mind to give you the chance to speak, but I'll leave it to them. They are the organizers. It's up to them.
Limit the questions out of respect for everyone. There's over 100 questions that we limited, and each of the speakers have their own responsibilities.
She seems to be desperate. Do you want to give her the chance as we give the chance for this young lady?
I'd like to save it to the end.
Khalas, we'll save it to the end. We'll save it to the end. It's okay.
Time with one of the speakers.
Yes.
Well,
Well,
it's not a organization. There's over 100 people here. Everyone wants to say their piece. We will say that please, out of respect for the organization and the people speaking.
It'll be short, I promise, and it's not meant to be an argument. I think it was mentioned earlier that the people, civilians are actually the ones that are speaking up against the injustices that have been taking place towards Palestinian people whose lives are viewed as nothing. Their lives are viewed as they don't matter. They're collateral damage for something they didn't even do. If you think about it, how many political leaders have come out and said what's happening in Gaza right now is necessary because there are terrorists within that are hiding amongst civilians. That's a common narrative that's been going on right now. And thousands of, we're talking about one Jewish man. I'm not trying to compare all lives that are innocent, not that have passed away. It's unfortunate and I'm not for it. But when we're talking about 9,000 Palestinians that have died, and counting, we can't even keep track. And Palestinians, the average age is under 18. These are little kids who have lives and they have futures. And the fact that people are not viewing their lives as something that matters is very sad.
thank you so much. I really, hear your feelings, and I do identify with them, and I'm sure my brother David also identify with them, and I'm sure everybody here in this room identifies with their feelings. And that should take us on a positive note to talk about what we can do. Now, clearly, there are many misperceptions. And by the way, we live in a democratic country. And democratic countries and governments are persuaded by lobby groups, as my brother David was mentioning. There are different lobby groups, like mine industry, farm industry, pharmaceutical industry, as well as political industries, if I could use if it's the right word. Now, clearly, there are certain advocacy groups who are more active, have more resources, than not the Palestinian community, but the Muslim community, because relatively we're a small community and relatively new community. They're trying to establish itself in Canada. Now, what are we expected to do to deal with this issue? Now, clearly we need to be more active in advocacy work. And since many of us might not have the expertise, then we need to lobby behind advocacy group who has been showing objective work into promoting the truth, and lobby behind them and help them into spreading or clarifying the truth. Because I'll be telling you, just like what my brother David was saying, in the first couple of weeks, I reached out to so many politicians, and I was getting bold, maybe to a certain extent, when I was listening to them, how they're talking about that the Israeli Defense Force has the right to do what they're doing in Gaza. And I say to them, like, where's your conscience? Where you get this from? And clearly there's so much negative advocacy work that has been done into politicians in our country that needs to be unwind. We need to start promoting the truth. We need to start promoting and helping them to understand the truth. And majority of them, as you can see sometime right now in the latest stand of the government, they're gradually grasping that, wait a minute, we need to open our mind, we need to look into the other narrative, and we need to know what is happening in reality, so we're able to have a just stand. Now, I'm not going to be naive and say this is going to happen overnight. It probably would not be happening over the next few months or maybe next a few years, but we need to take actions. We need to take small steps towards having something done effectively. I know there are so many people who wants to say things, but let me, inshallah, just for the sake of time, recommend for you a few things that come up from other sessions that I have done in the past. Other thing, all of you are savvy with social media, unlike me. And I'm saying up front, my Facebook account is probably inactive for so many months. But all of you are active. And social media right now is pulling the rug under the mass media, because mass media have proven to be unjust, ineffective, and unwilling to promote the truth. So all of you are representatives to the people who are living on earth, and generally speaking, the people living on earth who are living in conditions that are of injustice, to promote their causes, to promote the truth, and help people be educated about their suffering. And second, to push our government to take more active stand on this. When an MP or our PM office receives thousands or 10,000s or a few thousands emails regarding a certain issue, they cannot ignore it. Now I'm looking at, they're telling me we have 2 minutes. So be active. See how you can communicate with your official representatives at different levels of the government, whether it's a municipal level, whether it's provincial, whether it's federal. Call them up, send them an email, bug them, let them know that there are people who are concerned, because they represent us. And if they are not willing to represent us the right way, frankly speaking, let them step aside. Now, there's also a lot that you can do in terms of your ability to support the humanitarian organizations. Look into how much you can do and support. And I'm sure many of you are so generous and have done it. But believe in the power and the ability of doing these little things, and believe that they have a very huge impact on the long range. We need not, as I said again, to allow the fear to creep to our hearts. We need not to feel helpless and powerless. We need to be open-minded, be concerned, and be humans with feelings and conscience and moral and principled values. Now, I know I should stop here to give the final word from my brother David, so he can finish in 1 minute.
this my final word?
Go ahead with the plan.
Yeah, so,
Yes, final
what's that? I'm sorry?
closing remarks.
Okay.
Closing remarks. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, no, we've really talked a lot tonight, I really appreciate it. Instead of talking seriously, I actually want to sing something.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so I'm gonna close with a melody that the great rabbi who I learned from brought into this world and sang for us many times. And he brought the melody to go with the words that are in the Bible, that I'll say it in English, and I'm going to ask my brother, the Sheikh, to read it in Arabic. It's from Psalms, and Psalms is kind of religious poetry.
Oh, you have it here. It's okay. Okay.
And it says, in kind of classic English, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me." I just want to leave those words, and then I'm going to sing a bit, and then I'll be done.
Do you want me to read it now?
Please.
طرق صالحة يهديني حتى حين أمشي في وادي الموت المظلم لن أخشى شرا لأنك أنت معي عصاك وعكازك يشجعاني أعددت لي مائدة.
Ay, ay, ay.